This session explores stakeholder mapping. Developed by Professor Aubrey Mendelow of Kent State University in the United States, Mendelow's stakeholder mapping is a strategic management tool used to analyze and categorize stakeholders based on their level of interest in the organization and their level of power over its activities and decisions. The mapping process involves plotting stakeholders on a grid or matrix with power on one axis and interest on the other axis to visualize their relative importance to the organization. Here's an explanation of these two dimensions. Power. Certain factors may contribute to a particular group having high power. These factors typically include the following: control of critical resources. Groups that control essential resources such as financial capital, expertise, technology, or key information tend to have higher power. Legal or regulatory authority. Stakeholder groups with legal or regulatory authority, such as government agencies or industry regulators, often have significant power due to their ability to enforce rules and regulations. Market dominance. Stakeholder groups that dominate a particular market segment or industry sector may have considerable power over other stakeholders, including suppliers, customers, and competitors. Strong alliances or partnerships. Groups that have formed strong alliances or partnerships with other influential stakeholders can amplify their power and influence within the organization or industry. Reputation and credibility. Stakeholder groups with a strong reputation for expertise, credibility, or public support may wield considerable influence over decision-making processes. Ability to mobilize support. Groups that can mobilize widespread support or organize collective action, such as labor unions or activist organizations, often have significant power to influence outcomes. Access to decision makers. Stakeholder groups that have direct access to decision makers within the organization or industry can exert influence by presenting their interests and concerns effectively. Level of interest. Certain factors may contribute to a particular group having high interest, regardless of their level of power. These factors typically include the following: direct impact. Stakeholder groups that are directly affected by the organization's actions, decisions, or outcomes often have high interest in the organization's activities. This impact could be positive or negative, affecting their livelihoods, well-being, or resources. Dependence. Groups that rely heavily on the organization for resources, products, services, employment, or other benefits are likely to have high interest in the organization's performance and outcomes. Stakeholder values and mission alignment. Stakeholder groups that share similar values, goals, or missions with the organization may have high interest in its activities, especially if they perceive the organization as aligned with their interests or aspirations. Reputation and public image. Stakeholder groups that are concerned about their own reputation or public image may have high interest in the organization's actions and behavior, particularly if they perceive any association with the organization as potentially impacting their reputation. Legal or ethical considerations. Stakeholder groups that have legal or ethical obligations or responsibilities related to the organization's activities, such as regulatory bodies, community groups, or environmental organizations, may have high interest in ensuring compliance and responsible behavior. Information asymmetry. Stakeholder groups that lack complete or accurate information about the organization's activities may have high interest in obtaining more information to reduce uncertainty or address concerns. Historical relationships or grievances. Stakeholder groups that have had past interactions or conflicts with the organization or have unresolved grievances may have high interest in monitoring the organization's actions and outcomes to ensure their interests are addressed. So how can stakeholder mapping help the strategic manager? Identifying key stakeholders. Mendelow's stakeholder mapping helps organizations identify key stakeholders who have a significant impact on their business operations, objectives, and outcomes. By analyzing stakeholders' level of interest and power, organizations can prioritize their engagement efforts and focus resources on building positive relationships with those stakeholders who have the greatest potential to impact their success. Understanding stakeholder dynamics Mendelow's Stakeholder Mapping provides insights into the dynamics of stakeholder relationships and interactions within the organization. By visualizing stakeholders' relative positions on the mapping grid, organizations can assess the power dynamics, alliances, and conflicts that exist among different stakeholder groups. This understanding enables organizations to anticipate stakeholders' behaviors and reactions to strategic decisions and initiatives. Informing stakeholder engagement strategies. Mendelow's stakeholder mapping informs stakeholder engagement strategies by guiding organizations in determining how best to engage with different stakeholder groups. For stakeholders with high power and high interest, key players, organizations may adopt a collaborative approach, involving them in decision-making processes and seeking their input and support. For stakeholders with high power but low interest, latent supporters, organizations may focus on keeping them informed and engaged to ensure their continued support. For stakeholders with low power but high interest, watchers, organizations may prioritize communication and transparency to address their concerns and minimize resistance. For stakeholders with low power and low interest, minimal effort, organizations may adopt a minimal engagement approach, providing basic information as needed. Mitigating risks and maximizing opportunities. Mendelow's stakeholder mapping helps organizations identify potential risks and opportunities associated with different stakeholder groups. By understanding stakeholders' interests, concerns, and objectives, organizations can anticipate potential obstacles, conflicts, or resistance to strategic initiatives, and develop strategies to mitigate risks and capitalize on opportunities. Effective stakeholder management enables organizations to build trust, credibility, and support among key stakeholders, thereby enhancing their ability to achieve strategic objectives and drive success. In summary, Mendelow's stakeholder mapping is a valuable tool in strategic management that helps organizations identify key stakeholders, understand stakeholder dynamics, inform stakeholder engagement strategies, and mitigate risks while maximizing opportunities. By analyzing stakeholders' level of interest and power and plotting them on a mapping grid, organizations can develop targeted approaches to engage with stakeholders, build positive relationships, and achieve their strategic goals.